Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're going deep on some really heavy stuff. Crimes against children.
Yeah, we've got some court documents, news reports. We even pulled some social media posts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that we do the deep dives, but this is really a deep dive
Yeah,
into some pretty dark territory.
exactly. And we're not just looking at who did it, but we're looking at why.
So why?
Like what are the societal pressures? What are the systemic failures that kind of contribute to these horrible acts?
Yeah. And we've picked out three cases that we want to go through with you today,
Yes.
and we're going to start with Mariah Thomas and baby Zariah.
Yeah.
This is a case that really forces us to kind of confront the dark side of postpartum mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about a 26-year-old mom. She had a history of mental illness, and tragically, she refused to take medication after she gave birth.
Yeah, and it seems like that refusal is kind of at the heart of what happened next.
Right.
Um, and it's almost impossible to say out loud, but Thomas is accused of placing her 1-month-old daughter Zariah in an oven.
Oh, it's chilling. And it just raises so many questions.
Yeah.
The report suggests that Thomas was experiencing postpartum psychosis. This is a severe mental illness that can really distort reality.
Yeah, and we found some eerie social media posts from Thomas hinting at jealousy of her own child.
Yeah.
Like a resentment of the attention that Zariah was getting.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking to think about.
It really is. And what's really tragic about this is that postpartum psychosis is actually treatable.
Yeah.
With the proper medication and support, others can recover.
Right.
And they do recover. But this case it's a stark reminder of how important mental health care is, especially for new parents.
Yeah, absolutely. We often focus so much on the physical health of the mother and the baby, but we forget that the mental and emotional well-being of the parents is just as critical.
Right.
This case is a wake-up call for all of us to be more aware of the signs of postpartum struggles and to advocate for better access to mental health resources.
It's not just about individual mothers. It's about creating a society that supports families as a whole.
Yeah.
A society that recognizes the pressures of parenthood
Right.
and provides resources to navigate them.
Yeah, so let's shift gears now to a different kind of darkness here.
Okay.
The Return to Nature Funeral Home, run by John and Carrie Halford. Now, on the surface, they seem to be offering like a compassionate and environmentally conscious alternative to traditional funeral services.
Right. They were tapping into this growing trend of people wanting to minimize their environmental impact,
Right.
even in death. And so the Halfords promised these biodegradable caskets, natural burials, eco-friendly cremation services.
Yeah, but it turns out that beneath this veneer of eco-consciousness lay a horrifying truth.
Right.
Instead of carrying out those services that they had promised, they were
Yeah.
pocketing the money,
Right.
and they were leaving the bodies of these loved ones to rot
Oh my
in
God.
an unrefrigerated room.
Some had been there for years.
Years.
Can you imagine?
Imagine the families just grieving their loss and trusting these people to care for their loved ones with dignity and with respect,
Yeah.
only to discover this horrific betrayal.
It's just sickening. And what's even more disturbing is how they spent the money that they stole.
Right.
It was lavish vacations,
Yeah.
expensive jewelry. They even had laser body sculpting.
Wow.
It's just a stark contrast to the families that entrusted them, who are likely struggling to even pay for the funeral costs on top of their grief. What I find fascinating is that they were able to operate under the radar for so long.
Mhm.
It really makes you wonder, how can we be more discerning consumers, especially when we're dealing with such sensitive matters like funeral arrangements?
Right. Because, we're often at our most vulnerable when we're grieving.
Right.
And we're trusting these businesses
Mhm.
to handle our loved ones with care.
Yeah.
This case, it really highlights the importance of asking the right questions,
Yes,
doing our research, and not being afraid to seek a second opinion.
absolutely. And it also speaks to the need for stricter regulations and oversight in the funeral industry. Because, this isn't just about protecting consumers from financial exploitation. This is about ensuring that the deceased are treated with the dignity and respect they deserve.
So, okay, We've explored two very different cases so far, both highlighting the vulnerabilities of those who are often overlooked
Mhm.
or taken advantage of. New mothers struggling with mental health and grieving families seeking solace. But now we're going to dive into the case that has captivated and horrified the nation.
Yes.
The disappearance and murder of 5-year-old Harmony Montgomery.
This case is a tragic tapestry of systemic failures, missed opportunities, and the devastating consequences of domestic violence. Harmony's short life was marked by instability from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, she bounced between her mother, Crystal, who was battling addiction, and foster care. It's a harsh reality for so many children.
Right, it is.
Born into circumstances they have no control over, facing challenges most of us can't even imagine.
Right, and sadly for Harmony, that instability continued. She was placed in and out of her mother's care multiple times. And, it's important to note that Crystal did try to care for Harmony,
Right.
but relapses are a heartbreaking reality of addiction. And in January of 2018, Harmony was placed back into foster care.
And it was around this time that her father, Adam Montgomery, kind of re-entered the picture. He began supervised visits with Harmony in August of 2018, after a period of absence.
Yeah, and that detail looking back becomes so chilling.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know now, it raises so many questions about his motivations for seeking custody.
Yeah, and those questions only intensify when you consider what happened next. In February of 2019, just 5 months before the alleged abuse began, Adam was granted guardianship of Harmony.
This transfer of custody it's a pivotal point in the story. It makes you wonder, were there any warning signs that were missed? Were there any red flags about Adam's past or his ability to care for a young child?
Yeah, well, according to the reports, the first documented instance of abuse occurred in July 2019. Adam actually confessed to his uncle, Kevin, that he had given Harmony a black eye.
And Kevin's account is crucial here. He described the black eye as full, like a raccoon's eye. And that indicates a significant level of force used on a 5-year-old girl. It's a detail that just makes your stomach churn. Imagining the pain and the terror that Harmony must have experienced.
Yeah. And Kevin didn't stop there. He also stated that Adam admitted to, quote, bashing her around the house.
Oh, gosh.
So it really paints this picture of a pattern of physical abuse.
To his credit, Kevin reported this incident to Child Protective Services immediately.
Good.
Which raises the question, did the system respond adequately to this serious allegation of abuse?
Right.
Did they?
Well, a social worker did visit Adam's home that month, but determined that the claim of a black eye was unfounded. They did, however, identify the family as, quote, high risk
Okay.
for future child welfare involvement.
This is frustrating. It highlights a potential flaw in the system. Even when someone bravely reports a concern, sometimes more concrete evidence is needed for decisive action, and that delay can have devastating consequences.
Yeah, and sadly, in Harmony's case, it seems the abuse only escalated. During a subsequent visit, the social worker observed a red mark under Harmony's eye and some faded bruising.
Yeah.
Adam and Harmony both claimed it was an accident while playing with a toy lightsaber.
It's a classic example of an abuser manipulating the situation, coaching a child on what to say and creating this false narrative to cover up their actions.
Right.
It makes it incredibly difficult for social workers to determine the truth.
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated in January 2020 when the social worker contacted Adam about Harmony's whereabouts. And Adam claimed that Harmony was now living with her mother, Crystal, in Massachusetts.
A lie.
Yeah.
Of course. The social worker left a voicemail for Crystal to verify the information, but the call was never returned.
Wow.
Another missed opportunity, another point where a more proactive approach could have potentially changed the course of events.
It's heartbreaking to think about all those missed chances. And it was over a year later, in the fall of 2021, that Harmony was finally officially reported missing. Both Crystal and Harmony's former foster parents had expressed concern,
Right.
which prompted a police investigation.
And this delay in reporting is a critical factor in the case. Had she been reported missing sooner, the chances of finding her alive might have been significantly higher. The investigation quickly focused on Adam and his wife, Kayla, due to inconsistencies in their stories and the fact that Kayla had been fraudulently claiming Harmony for food benefits. Adam was arrested on multiple charges related to Harmony's disappearance, including assault and child endangerment.
And this initial arrest brought the case into the public eye.
Right.
and really intensified the search for Harmony. I mean, the nation was captivated.
Yeah.
Everyone was hoping for a miracle, praying for her safe return.
But that miracle never came. In June 2022, Kayla revealed to the police that Adam had murdered Harmony.
Oh my gosh.
She stated that the murder had occurred on December 7th, 2019.
Wow.
After Harmony had an accident in the car, and Adam, in a fit of rage, beat her to death.
Kayla's confession provided a chilling glimpse into the events leading up to Harmony's death. It shed light on the brutality of the crime and the lengths to which Adam went to cover up his actions. Kayla also described how Adam had pressured her to lie to the police about Harmony's whereabouts and had even threatened her to ensure her silence.
This is a crucial element of the story, the coercion and the
Yeah.
control that's often present in domestic violence situations. It's important to remember that Kayla was also a victim in this tragedy, trapped in a web of fear and manipulation.
On October 24th, 2023, nearly 3 years after Harmony's disappearance, Adam was finally charged with second-degree murder. He initially maintained his innocence, but later pleaded guilty to lesser charges of falsifying evidence and abuse of a corpse.
And this change in plea strategy suggests that the prosecution had built a strong case against Adam,
Right.
leaving him with few options other than to admit to some level of involvement in Harmony's death.
So the trial began in October 2023, and the prosecution presented just this harrowing account of Harmony's final days. They described how the family was living in their car after being evicted, and how Harmony's repeated accidents, such as wetting herself, triggered Adam's violent outbursts.
The image of a 5-year-old child, homeless and living in a car, already paints such a picture of vulnerability and despair.
Right.
To then imagine the terror that she must have felt at the hands of her own fathers, it's truly heartbreaking.
So the prosecution described how on the day of the murder, Adam had become enraged after smelling that Harmony had wet herself again.
Whoa!
He reportedly began hitting her repeatedly in the head while driving to get food at Burger King.
This detail is particularly disturbing. It's unfathomable that someone could inflict such violence on a child, especially for something so involuntary and so innocent.
And Kayla, who was in the passenger seat, testified that she tried to intervene, but was met with a threatening look from Adam that made her fear for her own safety.
Again, this underscores the complexities of domestic violence and the immense pressure that victims can face to stay silent. It's crucial to create a safe space for survivors to come forward without fear of reprisal.
After the final blow, Harmony began moaning and making gurgling sounds. But Adam, according to Kayla, showed no concern. He continued driving, got the food, and even used drugs while Harmony was dying in the back seat.
This level of callousness it's almost beyond comprehension. It speaks to a profound lack of empathy, a disturbing disregard for human life.
Once they realized that Harmony was dead, Adam, with Kayla's help, hid her body in a duffel bag. And then they embarked on this month-long effort to conceal the crime, moving the body from place to place, even storing it in the ceiling and a refrigerator.
The lengths to which they went to hide Harmony's body speaks to the calculated nature of the crime and this desperate attempt to avoid accountability. It's a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity.
One of the most horrifying aspects of the trial was the testimony about Adam's plans to dismember Harmony's body.
Oh, gosh.
He discussed using tools, like a handsaw, and even a NutriBullet to dispose of her remains.
This detail is incredibly difficult to process. It speaks to a level of cruelty and a disregard for human dignity that's simply beyond words.
Kayla testified that she helped Adam cut the clothes off of Harmony's body and described how he placed the body in a bag with lime to speed up the decomposition process.
This act of desecration adds another layer of horror to an already unthinkable tragedy.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of the profound and lasting impact that such crimes have on the victims' families and the wider community.
Eventually, Adam used a U-Haul to transport and dispose of Harmony's remains, which have never been found.
The fact that Harmony's body is still missing only adds to the tragedy.
Yeah.
It denies her family the closure of a proper burial, and it serves as a constant reminder of the brutal crime that was committed.
This case is far from over, even with Adam's guilty plea. The trial continues, and we can expect to hear more testimony about the events surrounding Harmony's death and the subsequent cover-up. But what's particularly crucial is that we use this trial as an opportunity to learn. and to improve.
Absolutely.
We need to examine the systemic failures that allowed this tragedy to occur
Yes.
and work to strengthen our child protection systems
Right.
to prevent such horrors from happening again.
Yeah, you're right. Justice for Harmony demands accountability, not just for Adam, but for anyone who could have intervened and failed to do so.
We owe it to Harmony and to all children at risk to create a world where their safety and well-being are paramount.
Absolutely. You know, it's important to understand that Harmony's case, while horrifying, isn't an isolated incident.
Right.
Child abuse and neglect are sadly far more common than we like to think.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to consider how many children are suffering in silence.
Yeah.
So after diving into these three heartbreaking cases, what are the key takeaways? What can we learn from these tragedies?
Well, I think one of the most striking lessons, especially from Mariah Thomas's story, is the importance of recognizing and addressing mental health issues,
Yeah.
particularly for parents.
Yeah.
Postpartum depression and psychosis are real, and they can have devastating consequences if left untreated.
It's a reminder that we need to be talking more openly about mental health.
Yes.
To destigmatize seeking help. Being a parent is hard enough without the added burden of mental illness.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual parents. It's about creating a support system.
Yeah.
Family members, friends, healthcare providers. We all have a role to play in ensuring that new parents get the help that they need.
The return to nature case is a different kind of wake-up call, I think. It highlights how even industries dealing with sensitive matters like death can be corrupted by greed.
It's a sobering reminder that we can't blindly trust anyone, especially when emotions are high, you know?
Right.
We need to do our research, ask tough questions, and hold businesses accountable for ethical practices.
And then there's Harmony's case. I mean, the most complex and heartbreaking of the three. It exposes a web of systemic failures, missed opportunities, and the devastating impact of domestic violence.
It's clear that our child protection systems need significant improvement. I mean, there were so many points of contact with Child Protective Services,
Well-
so many red flags, yet the system failed to protect Harmony.
So how do we fix it? Where do we even begin to tackle such a deeply rooted problem?
Well, I think one key area is strengthening communication and coordination between agencies. You
Yeah.
know, information needs to be shared efficiently between social workers, law enforcement, healthcare providers, and educators.
It's about connecting the dots, making sure everyone involved in a child's life is on the same page.
Exactly. And we also need to invest more resources in our child welfare system.
Yeah.
Social workers are often overworked and understaffed, making it nearly impossible to provide adequate support to families in need.
We can't expect them to be superheroes without giving them the tools and resources they need.
Right. And it's not just about catching abuse after it's happened. It's about preventing it in the first place.
Right.
We need to address the root causes like poverty, substance abuse, and domestic violence.
It's about tackling those societal issues
Yeah.
that create a breeding ground for abuse and neglect.
Absolutely. This requires a multifaceted approach, providing affordable housing, increasing access to mental health and addiction treatment, and supporting survivors of domestic violence.
It's a big task, no doubt, but we can't afford to be complacent. We need to work together as a society to create a safety net for families,
Right.
a community where children feel safe and supported.
Early intervention is also crucial.
Yeah.
Home visiting programs, parenting classes, affordable childcare. These are all proven strategies to support families before crises escalate.
You mentioned domestic violence. It's often a hidden problem,
Yeah.
occurring behind closed doors.
Right.
How can we address this specifically?
It starts with creating a culture where survivors feel safe to come forward.
Yeah.
You know, confidential hotlines, support groups, legal aid, safe housing options. These are all vital resources.
And we need to be educating everyone, children and adults alike,
Yes.
about healthy relationships, consent, and the warning signs of abuse.
Bystander intervention is another powerful tool.
Yeah.
We all have a responsibility to speak up if we witness something concerning. Silence can be deadly.
These cases are a stark reminder that we can't afford to turn a blind eye.
No.
We need to be aware, informed, and willing to take action. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed. What can the average person do to make a difference?
There's so many ways to get involved. You
Right.
know, volunteering at a local organization that supports families is a great start. Mentoring programs, after-school activities, food banks, they all play a vital role.
Yeah. And even simple acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
Oh, absolutely.
Listening to a stressed parent, offering a helping hand, providing a safe space for a child. These gestures can mean the world.
Donating to organizations that work to prevent child abuse and neglect is another powerful way to contribute.
Right.
Every dollar makes a difference.
And we can use our voices to advocate for change.
Yes.
Contacting our elected officials, supporting legislation that strengthens child protection laws, and raising awareness in our communities.
It's about creating a culture that prioritizes the safety and well-being of children, you know? We need to shift from reacting to tragedies to actively preventing them.
Let's go back to Harmony's case for a moment.
Yeah.
The details that emerged during the trial were truly harrowing.
Yeah, one of the most shocking revelations was the extent of the physical abuse that Adam inflicted on Harmony.
Yeah.
Seemingly minor incidents like wetting herself
Right.
would trigger these violent outbursts.
Kayla described how Adam would punch Harmony in the head,
God.
even while driving.
Wow.
It's hard to grasp the level of rage and cruelty behind those actions.
It's a reminder that abuse can take many forms.
Right.
And even seemingly minor incidents can escalate quickly.
The testimony also revealed the psychological control that Adam exerted
Right.
over both Harmony and Kayla.
Right.
He manipulated situations, lied to cover up Harmony's injuries, and threatened Kayla to ensure her silence. This pattern of control is a hallmark of domestic violence.
It makes it incredibly difficult for victims to escape.
Right.
Especially when they fear for their own safety or the safety of their children.
The detail about Adam taking Harmony's body to work with him in a duffel bag,
Oh my God.
storing it in a freezer is chilling. It speaks to a complete lack of remorse,
Yes.
a disturbing detachment from reality.
And his plans to dismember her body
Yeah.
using a handsaw and a NutriBullet are simply horrifying.
These details, while difficult to hear, are crucial to understanding the depth of the abuse and the calculated nature of the cover-up.
It's a reminder that monsters do exist, and they often hide in plain sight, disguised as loving parents or caregivers.
We need to be vigilant in recognizing the signs of abuse and be willing to speak up even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Silence can be deadly. What can you tell us about the defense's strategy in this case? How did they try to portray Adam?
Well, the defense, as you might expect, tried to shift the blame away from Adam.
Yeah.
They focused on Kayla's involvement, suggesting that she was the primary abuser and Adam was trying to protect her.
They pointed to Kayla's initial lies to the police,
Right.
implying she was covering up her own guilt.
It's a common tactic in these types of cases, attempting to create reasonable doubt by highlighting inconsistencies in witness testimony. But the prosecution presented a strong case. Kayla's detailed account of the events leading up to Harmony's death, along with physical evidence and testimony from other witnesses, painted a very different picture.
And ultimately, Adam's decision to plead guilty to lesser charges suggests that even the defense recognized the weight of the evidence against him.
Right.
It was a complex case with many layers, but one thing is clear. Harmony Montgomery deserves so much more than the short and tragic life she was given.
Absolutely.
Her story is a reminder of the urgent need for change, for a society that prioritizes the safety and well-being of all children.
I agree.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the broader implications of these cases.
Okay.
What do they tell us about the systems in place to protect children and our collective role in preventing abuse and neglect?
Well, I think one glaring issue is the lack of communication and coordination between agencies.
Right.
In Harmony's case, there were so many points of contact with Child Protective Services, yet it seems that information wasn't effectively shared or acted upon.
It's like a broken telephone game,
Right.
with crucial details getting lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. We need seamless collaboration
Yeah.
between social workers, law enforcement, healthcare providers, and educators.
Yeah.
Everyone involved in a child's life needs to be on the same page.
And it's not just about sharing information. It's about having the resources to act on it.
Right.
Social workers are often overwhelmed with cases, making it difficult to provide adequate support to families in need.
Investing in our child welfare system is essential.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that social workers have the time, the training, and the support that they need to do their jobs effectively.
So it's about both improving communication and providing adequate resources.
Yeah.
What else can we do to address these complex problems?
Well, we can't ignore the underlying societal factors that contribute to child abuse and neglect.
Right.
Poverty, substance abuse, mental health issues, domestic violence, they're all interconnected
Right.
and create an environment where abuse can thrive.
It's a tangled web for sure. How do we even begin to unravel it?
Well, we need to tackle these issues head on.
Yeah.
And this means providing affordable housing, increasing access to mental health and addiction treatment, and supporting survivors of domestic violence.
It's a massive undertaking,
Yeah.
but it's essential if we want to create a safer world for children.
Early intervention is another key piece of the puzzle,
Right.
reaching families before crises escalate.
Yeah, absolutely. Programs like home visiting, parenting skills classes, and affordable childcare
Right.
can provide critical support and prevent problems from spiraling out of control.
Right. It's about creating a safety net for families, a community that wraps its arms around struggling parents and protects vulnerable children.
So let's talk specifics. What are some signs of child abuse and neglect that people should be aware of? What should we be looking for?
Well, when it comes to physical abuse, there are often visible signs, unexplained injuries,
Right.
frequent accidents, flinching or fear around adults, changes in behavior or appearance.
But sometimes the signs are more subtle.
Right.
I mean, emotional abuse can be harder to detect.
Oh, absolutely. Emotional abuse can manifest as withdrawal, anxiety, depression, aggression, and sudden changes in school performance. Neglect, on the other hand, might show up as poor hygiene, lack of supervision, inadequate clothing, and frequent hunger or fatigue.
So it's about paying attention, being observant,
Yes.
and trusting our instincts.
Yes.
If something feels off, it probably is.
Exactly. And if you see something, say something.
Right.
Report your concerns to the appropriate authorities. It could save a child's life.
These cases are a stark reminder that we can't afford to turn a blind eye to the suffering of children. We need to be their voices, their advocates.
Every child deserves a safe and loving environment.
Yeah.
And it's our collective responsibility to ensure they receive the protection that they need.
We've covered a lot of heavy material today.
Yeah.
And it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of these problems.
I understand that feeling, but it's important to remember that change happens one step at a time.
Right.
One person at a time. Even small actions can make a difference.
So what are some concrete things that our listeners can do to help protect children in their own communities? What can we do to channel this outrage and sadness into positive action?
One of the most effective ways to get involved is by volunteering at a local organization that supports families, mentoring programs, after-school activities, food banks. They all play a vital role in providing a safety net for children and families.
Yeah, and even simple gestures of kindness can make a difference. Offering a listening ear to a stressed out parent, lending a helping hand with childcare, or simply creating a safe and welcoming environment for a child. These are all ways to show support.
Donating to organizations working to prevent child abuse and neglect is another powerful way to contribute. Every dollar makes a difference in providing essential services to families in need.
And we can use our voices to advocate for change. Contacting our elected officials, supporting legislation that strengthens child protection laws, and raising awareness in our communities. These actions can have a ripple effect.
It's about creating a culture that prioritizes the safety and well-being of children, a culture where abuse and neglect are not tolerated. These cases should serve as a wake-up call. We can't afford to be complacent. We need to be proactive in protecting the most vulnerable members of our society.
These stories are tough to hear, but it's crucial that we don't shy away from these difficult conversations.
By confronting these realities, we can learn from these tragedies and work toward a future where every child has the opportunity to grow up in a safe and loving environment. We owe it to Harmony, to Zariah, and to all the children who have suffered in silence to create a world where their voices are heard and their lives are protected.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed and helpless after hearing these stories. It makes you wonder, what can one person really do, in the face of such widespread problems?
I understand that feeling, but it's crucial to remember that change happens one step at a time, one person at a time. Even small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
So what are some tangible things that our listeners can do to help protect children in their own communities?
Volunteering is a fantastic way to make a direct impact. Think about local organizations that support families, mentoring programs, after-school activities, shelters, food banks. They're always looking for dedicated volunteers.
And it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment.
Yeah.
Even an hour a week can make a difference in a child's life.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of simple gestures. You know,
Yeah.
being a supportive neighbor or friend can be incredibly meaningful. Offer to babysit for a stressed out parent, lend a listening ear, or simply create a safe and welcoming environment for a child to be themselves.
Those small acts of kindness can have a huge impact on a child's sense of safety and well-being.
Of course, financial contributions are always appreciated.
That's right.
Donating to organizations that work to prevent child abuse and neglect allows them to provide those vital services to families in need.
And we can all use our voices to advocate for change. Contact your elected officials, support legislation that strengthens child protection laws, and raise awareness in your communities. Every voice adds to the chorus demanding better protection for children.
It's easy to get caught up in the big picture, systemic failures, resource shortages, and the like. But sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is focus on the individuals right in front of us.
That's a great point. It's about being present, being observant, and being willing to step up when we see a child or a family struggling.
Exactly. We can all be those everyday heroes.
These cases are a stark reminder that we can't afford to be complacent. We can't turn a blind eye to the suffering of children. It's up to all of us to create a world where every child feels safe, loved, and protected.
Harmony Montgomery, Zariah Thomas, and countless other children who've suffered abuse and neglect deserve justice. But more importantly, they deserve a legacy of change, a future where their stories serve as a catalyst, for creating a world where every child thrives.
It's a heavy topic, no doubt, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Yeah.
And it's a responsibility we all share.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked some reflection, some conversation, and perhaps even a call to action. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can make a world of difference in a child's life. Let's all be part of the solution.